Wagwan, are you there? What's good? Jerk Jaloff and collard greens is back, y'all. We would think it's Thanksgiving. To your boy G Rants. I know I'm sounding a little nasally right now, a little under the weather. It's been raining literally for like 4 days straight here in New Jersey. Well, a little bit of an exaggeration, probably like 3 days, but you would swear the flood is coming. Build your ark, everybody. The flood is coming. On the horn, I got with me Francis and D-Blacc. Brothers, it's been a long time. Season 8 is here, though. And I gotta say, number 8 is my favorite number. So I think season 8 is gonna be lit. But how you guys been doing during the hiatus, man?
Yeah, that's Kobe number 2. So
yo, shout out to Kobe. On the 8. You know, I got the number 8 right there.
Yeah,
right there.
I
Kobe
see
numbers. Shout out to rest in peace, Kobe. But I'm doing well, man. How y'all doing? I miss y'all, man.
Like action going on right here. Let me move this out the way.
Yeah, I'm chilling, man. I mean, it was a nice little break. We got reprioritized life things, kind of restructure on the pod, move things around. So, I mean, I think it was a useful little break we had. So, but we're here, still bringing out these topics.
Yeah, man, life be lifing, bro.
What'd you say?
Life be lifing, man.
Yeah, for real, man.
But shout out to our April birthdays, one of them being one of our members here. Well, actually, 2 of our members on the pod, but one of them that are actually present. D-Blacc, what you do for your birthday, bro?
You know me, man.
Wifey jumped out the cake and everything. What was going on?
I know, right?
You know what he was doing? He was eating them yams.
Oh, here we go, man.
Man, it was MIA. First birthday, so you know what he was doing.
Man, you already know me. Like, I mean,
alien yams.
Nah, man, I do the same thing most days. I mean, I think, you know, real talk, just thank God for the day. Thank God for making it, and I just move on. That's really all I need.
Nothing crazy happened for your birthday. Nothing.
Nah, that's not me.
All right.
I'm real low key for the most part.
All right, no doubt. Well, I mean, it's return of the season, and as you already see, the topic is called Black Culture is Trash, where we're going to give our opinions on the influence of Black culture in America today, whether it's doing us any justice or doing us any good. But before we get into that, be sure to check us out on Instagram at Jerk Jaloff Collard Pod for more up-to-date information on our topics, what we're doing, posts, activity. You can also check it out on TikTok and YouTube as well at the same tag, Jerk Jaloff Collard Pod, for more up-to-date information as we get posted. So I actually wanted to ask y'all a question. Normally you have like a little warm-up. And this is based off of a story I heard where a guy met a young lady. They were talking maybe for a few weeks, days in the week, you know, getting to know each other. And he decided to invite her to his boy's bachelor party as a way of getting to know her a little bit better. He was going to be in her area.
That already sounds like an L, bro. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's going to be in her area. So they figured, yo, let's make a 2-for-1 special out of this mug. You know what I mean? I come see you, you hang out, do what we got to do and have some fun. What's your take on that? If you're just meeting someone, would you invite them to your boy's bachelor party? Or for the ladies for your bachelorette party, to get to know them better? Would you do that? Yes or no? Good move, bad move?
That's already an L, man. That relationship, because it just, I don't know. I feel like if you're trying to get to know someone, taking them to something that's really, I don't know if say extreme, but something that I guess you're really into would be a good test. But some people, even if they're okay with it, it might be too much initially. You know what I mean? Like there's some people that are like, yeah, I'm really into something, but off the bat, they don't want to admit it right off the rip. They don't want to jump straight to bachelor party. Let's have dinner first. let's just have a little coffee. Let's, you know, be chill before we start going to bachelor parties.
I mean, not everyone's bachelor party is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody's going to Montreal. You know what I mean? Some people are just like,
here we go.
Oh boy.
I don't know.
No, I mean, like my first instinct was no. But when I thought about it, I was like, you know, at a bachelor party, you know, if like after your groomsmen are single anyway, Like they're gonna be busy trying to find girls. So if you already have a friend you want to bring to the party, why not? Especially if she brings some of her friends with her, then why not? Like
I mean, that's
it's a
assuming she bringing
it's
friends. That's
like it's a
assuming she
party.
bringing friends.
What?
I said that's assuming she bringing friends
If
though.
she even if she doesn't, I feel like if you go into like a club or whatnot and she just joined in with y'all, I don't see a big deal with it. But you know, but I mean, it's a double edged sword, man.
Well,
I
in
don't
this
know.
scenario, the
It's
partner
a
stayed with them for the entire trip. Like
no. She can't stay with at the
plus one
crib. She
at the
can like
pad.
come in and drop in, like and come party with the boys or something. But that's the farthest I would go. But I mean, I definitely wouldn't do it. If I'm trying to get to know someone, I got to get to know them outside of interaction with my boys because my boys would be a distraction, right? So it's just one of those unnecessary items. I would say just just keep it in house, man. When you get to know her and you feel like she's worth even meeting the boys, then you invite her out with the boys. You just don't jump into the boys
Yeah,
mentality,
because like I guess another thing that can happen too, right? Is like whenever you go for a bachelor party, you're going to celebrate that person. You know what I mean? You're not going to bring a date and say, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna split my time
Yeah, that's a
between."
good point.
Like, how do you split time between your person and your person? Your people's. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm here for my boy, but I'm gonna be hanging out with my girl majority of the time.
Yeah, that's foul, man. That's a hell's
Yeah.
man right there. Like, I mean, like I said, the only way it's okay is if it's like at a party type scenario and
Mhm.
she just is part of the crew and you're just like getting drinks or whatnot, then it's cool. It could be more of a conversational interaction with the crew, right? And it's always, if it's a bunch of boys and you have a girl with y'all, it's not even a bad idea because you can also help bring girls to the crew if like there's a bunch of, like I said, single man in the crew, so it kind of helps.
Isn't that like a bad scenario too to bring one chick, for instance, a one lady to a bunch of single dudes, and now she's looking at you like, damn, your friend fine as hell. Like, why am I with you? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's
is it?
true.
It's like I would hate knowing that some guys go to bachelor parties to find women, right? So that to me, it's kind of like you're bringing sand to the beach in a way. If the goal is to kind of go out there and be lascivious and do whatever you want to do,
Mhm.
everyone's bachelor party is different. Not every bachelor party is Montreal. You know what I mean? Where it's classy.
Oh my God, I keep saying
So
it.
Or Vegas
I
or whatever.
Vegas, So I'm like, why would you want to bring Shorty to that, knowing that you got your single friends there on top of that? And then now she's probably prospecting if she's not happy with you, like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Or they looking at her like, oh, bet what's going on with this? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
Hey, yo, when you got a bunch of horny single guys around and you got a girl, yeah, you might lose your chick too. Yeah, that's a thing. She might start
yeah,
choosing because
yeah.
girls choose just like guys do too. So
Like, so I guess we can come to the consensus that that's basically kind of like a recipe for disaster, unless maybe
facts.
it's like a couples thing or there's other couples there. Like, maybe save it for the engagement party, or like after you get to know the person more too, right? Because it's like, are you expecting Shorty to also go half on some of the expenses also, like while she's there? Because that could be another
Mm.
problem also. Like, oh yeah, you're here, so buy my boy some shots. You know what I mean? It's gonna be like, like absolutely not.
Nah, she wants the freebies, bro. Nah.
Yeah. So
I feel
yeah.
like only in a situation where maybe you both share the same friend group, then it wouldn't be so weird because maybe she's also invited. It'd be a good opportunity to see how you both collaborate or how you both get along within the same social circle now that your relationship has changed. You know, it'd be a good test. But again, if she doesn't know the boys, then it's kind of awkward. Again, I think the point about you're trying to get two for one. You're trying to get a date, and then if the date don't work out, you're still in an environment where you can still kind of rebound. It's a little selfish. It's better to just have the two separate. Just have a date with the chick, get to know the chick, and if she's not, then she's not it. You know.
Mm, a lot of things to prospect there, but I think we can all say it's probably not a good idea. And don't try to cheap out on interactions, man. Just
Yeah, for real.
don't try to 2-for-1 or consolidate or get a value meal out of it. Just take your time and grow. Because then last thing you want is your boys clowning your chick too.
Yeah, for real.
Like, oh, yo, why you bring her, bro?
You know
Yeah,
what I
she better be
consider?
nice. Yeah, if she ain't, you might get.
Uh,
Yo, I'm
uh,
gonna stop, man. I'm gonna stop.
No, but you know what I consider it is like and probably like the most closest comparison for me is like when people like are in a meeting, but they're multitasking, and then their name gets called, and then they don't know what the hell they were called.
like,
on.
huh?
What were we
What?
talking about? Huh?
I mean,
Huh?
so you tell me you've never done it before? Like,
I'm
oh,
not saying
sorry,
I've
I
never
was.
done it.
I
I'm
mean,
not saying
at
I've
least you
never.
gotta admit you're not paying attention at that point, right?
Yeah, you gotta admit you're not paying attention. So if you really there for the party and you turning up, you got cheeks clapping everywhere, you doing whatever, and then you got some shorty that you don't know that you're trying to know, and she's like, my favorite color is my birthday is. And you're like, huh? What was your birthday? What was your favorite color? Like you ain't paying her no attention. You
Bro,
ain't building no relationship off that.
absolutely not.
Oh,
Building a bad one.
relationship, chill. The guy he didn't even say anything about relationship.
Ah,
He
here we
said, "Girl,
go.
you just trying to get to know on a
Ah,
date,
here we
bro."
go.
Because you could
Already the
meet a
top.
shorty on your bachelor party, and that's a little different too. You know what I mean? Like, but to invite her and be like, hey, come through. We're gonna be here. I'm gonna be in your town. That's
But then it
Yeah,
also shows
I
you
don't know,
weak
man.
intention
It's cool,
too.
man. I don't see nothing wrong with it, to be honest. As long as it's like I said, when I think about it, like if I'm, especially if I know you and I'm in your city and we're doing like a bachelor party over there, I'll let you know, like, yo, bring your friend. If you don't, but like at least it's one girl,
like bring a
and
couple
it will help
friends.
invite more girls to the crew. Like, especially if she bad, like, you know,
Bring a
like.
couple friends. Like
I
bring
guess it,
several
Yeah,
but then
friends.
like
it goes
why
back to
not?
the
The
intent.
boys gonna be like, "Yo, good looking."
Bring single auntie and everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it goes back to
aunties.
the intent because that means you ain't looking at that chick to wifey for real.
Exactly.
You ain't
That's
about
a
to.
Well, well, nobody said anything about wifing
All right
wifing
then,
the
my
girl
bad. I
up.
stepped into
So
the wrong room.
that's a value meal. That's like, all right.
I'm just saying.
Like you really the plug, my G. Let's go.
exactly,
Have
especially
strippers.
them orny ass dudes like, "Yo, good looking."
Bro. All right, so let's run into it. I'm gonna read some stats for y'all, which are compiled from the years of about 2011 till recent, and a couple of them indicating here, just kind of describing consumership in America, particularly within our peoples. Black people are major consumers in the American economy and spend more than 1 million a year or so on goods and services. Black students take out the most student loan debt for a bachelor's degree, followed by white students. Black borrowers carry a median student loan balance of $30,000, and basically 90% of Black students take out student loans to pay for college, compared to 66% of white students. As of 2020, Black families have a median household income of just over $41,000, whereas white families have a median household income of more than $70,000. A Black household at the 60th percentile of the distribution has received less than a rank of 28% in the wealth distribution of white households, and a relative rank gap of 32 percentage points. In other words, 60% of the Black households hold less than $49,600 in wealth, compared to 28% of white households. And let's talk about the homicides here real quick, and we'll get into our topic. Homicide victims in 2019, where the race was unknown, 53.7% were Black or African American, 41.6% were white, 3% were of other races, and 1.7% were of unknown races. And basically the per capita offending rate for African Americans was roughly 8 times higher than that of whites. And the victim rate was similar. So not some of the highest marks when you look at it from a statistical point of view. And the reason why I brought that up is because a lot of the times you'll notice when there are discussions talking about the plights of Black Americans in America, or there's Black Americans or people of color in general, these are some of the stats you're going to get hit with when you try to describe some of the disparities and inequalities that we face, and basically to kind of preach a sort of self-inflicted, self-defeating type, narrative that essentially we're not holding ourselves accountable enough, and we're in a way essentially stunting our own progress in America. So that's the reason why we wanted to talk about this topic today. To also aid in the discussion for progression of Blacks in America in general, and hopefully all over the world, and changing the perception. So first question I wanted to ask y'all, and being that this is a multicultural, multi-ethnic podcast, basically a reflection of diaspora in America today. In your own words, what does it mean to be or identify as Black? And we can start off with D-Blacc since he's unmuted.
I mean, yeah, I mean, got Black in my name, right? So must say something. It's such a complicated thing for me because not necessarily being born here, my experience is so different from the typical African American that has like a long history of generations here. But based solely on skin color, I automatically get grouped within that same, population. And I say it like I identify with Black just from the color of my skin, because that is like when you have to check the census box, that's what the box is, right? But when it comes to the historical plights and challenges, the truth of the matter is I don't really resonate because I don't have the history to align with that ideology. You know what I'm saying? Like my family didn't go through that. I don't have a history of slavery and all that stuff in my family. But because of where I live, because of how I look, I automatically get grouped within that Black. Now, I don't say that as a negative, that I don't, like I said, dishonored to be within that group. It's just that I can never truly feel like I fully understand what Black American culture really means, So for me, being Black, it means being of that true Black American culture, that heritage, all of, freedom fighters, all of that. But I'm kind of coming in on the tail end because my family, we immigrated here, so we're kind of reaping some of the benefits of cultural change and everything like that, but not necessarily having the history to go along with it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, I think I appreciate your perspective with that. I guess for me, it's totally different because when I think of Black, I still think of Black, across the board. We are rooted back to Africa, right? So for me, I don't really just look at it just from the African American perspective. I just look at it like, my skin is dark, I'm Black. We are all originated from Africa. So regardless, even though our family didn't go through some of those hardship and we cannot relate to it, it is part of our history, regardless, where you're from or where you were born. But I mean, for me, at least I identify as being Black, I'm not, and I identify being African American as well. So, so for me, and I am still African at the same token. I was born in Nigeria, but the struggles that our ancestors went through, although I'm not going through it, but when I moved to this country, I take on those challenges. I'm not like excluded from it, right? So for me, like when I think of Black, I think about just the struggles. I think about slavery, our resiliency, because and ultimately it comes down to like just Black excellence as well, because it trickles down, right? I think about like rap music, culture, our family, because we're so grounded in our roots and our family heritage and traditions. So for me, it's always hard for me because I know there's a part of us, especially Africans, who we try to separate ourselves sometimes from the African American culture or the group, and we kind of like, oh, I'm Nigerian American or whatever. And I've never been like that. I've always like, at the end of the day, when they look at us, they see us the same. And and as and for me, since when I more recently in the last few years, traveling to like South American countries and I see other blacks who look like me, it really kind of opened my eyes a little bit more because I realized black people are everywhere and they look just like us and they look just like me. And I was, one of my trips to Belize, I remember I saw a guy who was just as dark as me. He had braids, he had dreads actually, sorry. And I asked him, he was like, bro, like, I was like, do you experience any racism because of your skin color? Because Belize is fairly diverse, and he was telling me like, like if you look at my family picture, you would see different shades of black. Like you said, someone who look like me, someone who's like who look Hispanic that you can obviously see. And it just like it was just an eye opener for me when I heard a lot of that feedback because I was curious because I've
Mhm.
never really seen someone that looked like me or is just as dark as I am in other countries.
Hmm.
And so it's just kind of like just the beauty of being black because we're so diverse and so rich in culture and tradition. So I definitely that's if I had to identify like kind of name the things that I consider black, it is a lot of those just resiliency, the things that the way the I guess the media portray us, it is there's a lot of those things that I agree with and things that are challenging that I disagree with as well. But ultimately, I know we got a lot to talk about, so we'll get into a lot of those
Yeah,
detail. But
yeah.
yeah,
We'll cut into that for sure about the media aspect because that's probably one of the most imperative pieces. But as far as saying on the question, as far as what does it mean to be or identify as black, I throw my hat in there. I think today's definition or how I would define it is basically a highly melanated people born from slavery, displaced and without a history, basically constantly searching for their origin. And that's what I personally think. I don't want to say slavery is synonymous with being black because let's be real, slavery was an act, like it was a thing that everyone did. Like in Africa, you had countries in Africa enslaving other, you had ethnicities enslaving other ethnicities, in
Yeah.
West and Central Africa. You had um the Irish were enslaved by the Romans. You had other atrocities that occurred throughout history as well, the Armenian genocide. You had other people that were, inflicted trauma and pain and suffering by people that look just like them as well. And there are degrees of separation, whether that be by nation, by religion, by even what you eat. It was enough to separate the people. So to me, it's like to associate black people with the slavery only is kind of doing us a little bit of a disservice. But that has become a major talking point in our origin story, especially for Black
Mhm.
Americans and in our culture. And I would say, yeah, it's been kind of unprecedented where the scale that slavery took with Black people was a lot different as far as the transatlantic slave trade and the applications or the defining of what it meant to be Black. And I think that even started with like one of the kings of Portugal that sent like scouts out to Africa. And, as far as making up, terms and defining what it meant to be Black, even the Africans, it started with the Africans when they were considered savages, you know what I mean? And it started even from all the way in Africa. I don't think it's taught the way it is in America. Well, actually, it's not even really taught that much at all. I think that's a big talking point today regarding things like critical race theory, and understanding history with America. I understand in Germany, they go over their Nazi past, but in America, there's really nothing
Mhm.
to really discuss or go over what happened here.
Mhm.
Most of the times you'll hear about sharecropping, you hear about Reconstruction period, and that's about it. You know what I mean? You hear about the Civil War, of course, and that's about it. Emancipation Proclamation, that's about it. But everything else that took place, the narratives, defining Black people, origin of the N-word, all of that, never really discussed. And there's a concern about pretty much spreading, this anti-white, propaganda or narrative in America today when it comes to identifying what it really means to be Black in America. So I think ultimately the definition is up to us, and as a collective, because unfortunately, anyone that has a darker shade of melanin is considered Black, no
Mhm.
matter where you're from. If your hair is kinky, dark melanin, you're considered Black. Not even dark melanin, but a high ratio of melanin.
Former
It's
one
just like,
drop rule.
Yeah, exactly. You're lumped into that category. So fortunately that is the definition, or at least how I look at it. But these aren't things that are unprecedented or just unique to us, but transatlantic slave trade, yes, in that regard. The narratives, yes. So let's
I
get
mean,
into
to be fair, I mean, sorry to cut you off.
no, no
I,
problem.
I would say like I mean, I get it. Like there were other, race or group that were enslaved that went through slavery as well.
And yet indentured servants as well, but
Yeah, but like, I feel like obviously, yes, we do talk about that is the narrative out there, but it has such a high impact on our race for generations, and we still are still dealing with it. We are the only group I feel like are still ripping some of the negative from that still, right?
mm,
I mean, some people can agree or disagree with that. Obviously, I mean, I don't have that mindset, but the reality is the reality. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it is part of our history, and we cannot disregard it. So,
well, do you want to go
it
into
is.
one of those, some of the things you mentioned that we're still dealing with them? Not that I don't believe you, but can you share like some of the things you think we're still dealing with as a reflection of that or as a result of it?
Just, I mean, it's not just race slavery, but it's just the trickle down impact that it has on our generation now, on the people, or on black race, on the black community. You know, in addition to that, we have war on drugs that was really specific and targeted towards the black family. And one of our value in the black community is our family, right? So all of the, like, the attacks and the issues that we've dealt with within the black community is stuff that we are still trying to overcome in today's generation, right? So now
Mm,
we are trying to build back our family, bring back the fathers into the home and into the household. you know yes, we are, a lot of us are not trying to use that as an excuse to what a lot of our brothers and sisters have dealt with. There are generational curses that we are still trying to, a lot of families still trying to overcome because of the impact that it left behind, right? So I get it. We shouldn't hold on to some of those traumas, but the truth is he has trickle down impact on different families in different ways, and we just have to acknowledge it and not use it as an excuse to why some of our brothers and sisters can't get it together. But the truth is, it is something that did happen, and
Mhm.
we've been dealing with something, is one thing or the other, man. Like our race has always been targeted, and
yeah,
we always have to work twice as hard trying to just make something out of
yeah.
nothing, really.
I-
So
If I
Well,
may, I think one thing that makes it challenging for me is because as individuals that were born outside this country, or like we know our parents were back home, like Jamaica, Nigeria, we can actually trace them back to not being here. I wonder if there is a point where it's like we got on the train late, we don't really know, we were brought here, or we were just the first person in our family born here, but because of the color of our skin, we automatically get lumped in this group. So we're receiving all of the social pressure that group is facing, right? So like the Black American ideology mindset socially, they're dealing with all of this backlash from slavery, cultural challenges, etc. But now we, as immigrants, are now also imparting in that because of the fact that we just look alike. Does that make sense?
yeah, and I think I want to touch on those two things as well. Like one thing that Francis said and one thing that you're saying. We'll definitely touch into the impact of, I guess, I don't want to say foreign blacks, but non-black Americans. And essentially what you're touching on is basically being kind of lumped into that category of blacks in
Yeah.
America. Because let's be real, it's not really, well, that's another thing too, because a lot of times you hear, and I can even think of my own personal experiences where it was like, okay, my Jamaican parents had a feeling about Black Americans. And they would sometimes even perpetuate, not, I think they're way past this now.
Right. No, I
But
feel.
I
I
think,
know what you're trying to say.
yeah, it will be like, oh, when Black Americans, you know, they're this, they're that. And you would hear
Right.
that with, you know, non-Black Americans, Blacks from other countries having this point of view of, and this is before a lot of them even come to the country. They have
Mhm.
this point of view.
They know
So
how Americans are treating them. Yeah.
exactly, and how they are perceived within America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of the times, let's be real, that's I think it's multifaceted, because a lot of the times we would say, okay, the idea of Blackness is something that we more or less inherited, and that's what I believe. I don't think we
Mhm.
created it, we inherited it, and it's still up to us to kind of reshape it. However, yes, anyone that is Black is essentially lumped into that category, but it's not us imposing those views on each other. It's non-Black people imposing those views, and that's my take on it. However, there are also, this shows you how strong the narrative was, because if someone from another country comes in, or maybe this is even from their exposure to Black Americans, they're like, damn, I don't want to mess with these people because of so.
Mhm.
And like I said, within me growing up, I've heard stories, you know, Black Americans this, Black Americans that, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, growing up around them, attending schools with them, it was just like, and me, like, you know, first generation here in America, from a Jamaican immigrant family, it's kind of like understanding your own point of view. But on Francis's point of view also regarding, you know, things that took place in history, I can say arguably there's definitely more legislation that has passed from federal side or state side that has been more harmful to Blacks in America than I think any like I know you said, mentioned the war on drugs. You're probably talking about crack being introduced in the 80s, which is, a lot of people will probably tell you that's propaganda.
Mhm.
But you know, I believe it. I watch Snowfall.
Snowfall. Now
Oh
we're
um,
using
boy.
Snowfall for historical
I know.
references
But on a
now.
serious note, though, you look at things like redlining, you look at things like Jim Crow, you know what I mean? These are all things that have passed. You'd even look at things like, I believe Lyndon B. Johnson passed a bill where fatherless homes receive some type of monetary, you know, stipend and whatnot. And some people having points of view on the impact that that had on, you know, the Black family in America, and redlining till this day, not being able to purchase properties. And these are all things written into law that have had an impact on us as well. So, or just anyone that looks Black, you know what I mean, regardless of where you're from, because you're just lumped into that category.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
definitely. Yeah, thanks for shedding more light today. Yeah, I think
mhm,
all of that is kind of everything that I'm kind of referring to
I
is really
understand.
just all this stuff that we had to deal with as a race, right? But thanks for shedding more light into kind of the federal and the governmental um impact of that as well.
All right, so let's ask this next one. I'm gonna start with you, Fran. Is race a significant component of your identity or life views? So
Yeah,
essentially,
it is. I can't hide my Blackness.
mhm,
So it is a huge part of my life. Everywhere I go, I wear my Blackness with pride. Even though I know the challenges that comes with that. It does impact my decision making. The way I move, the way I carry myself.
how so?
I know. So for example, if I'm driving and it's dark at night, I take my hat off. I don't wear a
Mm,
hat. Still to this day. I just did it the other day, actually. I was driving. I was like, actually, let me take my hat off because I don't want to be profile. You know, that's some
right,
of the struggles that I was kind of referring to as well. Those are the uphill battles that other race don't have to deal with. It's a mental battle that we, in a way, maybe take on. Maybe we don't have to take it on, but the reality is the number shows it. We get stopped by the police more than anybody else for random stop. Like, so I'd rather not put myself in that situation if I can prevent it. It's just part of some of the things we have to teach our kids and be more self-aware of the things that we can do to prevent ourselves to being profile. If that is, if we know like wearing a hat potentially may cause that, take it off. I know like maybe we don't want to because of pride or our ego, but for me, I don't really care too much about that, right? I mean, even like the career we pick sometimes, like, I remember growing up, like my parents told me like, you should stay in the medical field because regardless of what your skin color is, they need you. They need your service So if you can work your way into any kind of form of medical industry, be a doctor, whatever, nurse, whatever, your job will be secured. You're not competing with like this is how they used to say with their kids, right? Competing with American kids, where if they have to choose between you, your black ass, and a maybe a white, all right, or like
That's
their
keeping it real.
counterpart, like most of the time they're gonna probably pick their someone who looks like them, and that is some of the struggles that we are seeing in even in sport for coaches, like ownerships, all of that stuff is people tend to pick who they feel more familiar with, feel more comfortable with. So I said all of that to say, like, even though, like, over time, you have to build self confidence within yourself
Mm-hmm.
to, like, know that, I'm going to build my skill set where my skill set is undeniable,
Yeah.
regardless of what I'm going up against.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you also feel like I have to work twice as hard to build my skill set to compete with people who maybe doesn't have the same level of skill set or or education that I have. Right. So like those are some of the challenges, that comes with identify living with this blackness every day. So um I mean it is what it is. Like I embrace it. I love being black. I feel like we're the dopest race out there. It is, like
But you're saying it
but
comes with some
it comes with its
caveats.
challenges though, right?
You're saying it comes with some caveats, though.
Oh, it comes with its challenges. Like it's not easy, right? But it
Mm.
also comes with this with the level, like I mean, I know we were joking earlier about girls or whatnot, but like there's also stereotype about black men that benefit black men in the marketplace, like right. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just keeping it 100. So like, and that's more on the,
Like
you
you're
know,
well endowed.
well, at least that's a stereotype out there, right?
Yeah.
So like, but I mean, true or false, whatever, right? It does. I'm sure there's a lot of men who benefit from those perceptions or stereotype, and
Mm.
but like there's other negative ones. They think we're crazy, we think we're lazy, we're criminals, we like people like see you walking across the street and they walk, like the people stare at you when you go into the store, like
Maybe a rapper
those
or
are like the things that you hear like I mean, like the truth is, we all have lived through it, and it's just some of those things you see. But now, when you get to a safe place within yourself, you can see it and laugh at it and move on, and it doesn't actually mentally impact you to where it makes you go crazy.
Mm.
So,
I
What
think
about
it's
you,
so
D?
interesting that you said it. You said like I swear you said like the mantra for the African American perception of like how we've been dealing with all this. It is what it is. Like
our
it
resiliency, bro.
is what it is, and but the thing is that it's actually it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword because we do wear it as a badge of honor in a way of saying that we do have a little bit of more of a climb to get out of. It's funny because I don't know if you guys watch Atlanta, but there was one episode of Atlanta where Donald Glover, Charles Gambino, however you guys know him, he did an episode about trying to go to like this one black guy who was opening a sushi restaurant,
Oh
right?
yeah, I saw that one.
And across the street there was a Popeyes, and all Donald and his boy, his ex-girl, that's all they was talking about. Popeyes, 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 and the sushi spot, right? And mind you, the guy was like, I'm a black dude trying to do sushi, and everybody looking at me weird because I'm a black dude trying to do sushi. But all y'all thinking about is Popeyes and fried chicken and rims. And if you looked out the window, all you saw was them wearing their most, like some kids wearing like the freshest sneaks and the Jordans and the Nikes and everything like that while eating a Popeyes chicken on a car that the engine was smoking, but the rims were so clean. You know what I mean? We get associated with that mindset because we're just like, we need to dig our way out. We wear that digging our way out as a badge of honor. And that's what makes us black, because we have to fight a little bit harder or something like that. And that mindset is something that it's funny because I like when you said like about taking off your hat when you were in the car because there may be a cop. I mean, my parents lived in a town where I got pulled over just because I had a really nice car. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we have to constantly push against those narratives if we want to see a change. I'm not saying that everyone, I think we talked about this a long time ago when it comes to risk, how much personal risk you're willing to take on, right? But we all have to try to push that narrative away that we are just thuggish, ruggish, gangster mindset, all about drugs and rap music. And like, I could like rap music, but I also like rock music. Like, we're not this just one little simple thing. I could wear baggy jeans, but please believe I could go golfing. I mean, I go golfing with my fucking boss. You know what I mean? Like, we're not just these simple things of just all of these negative perceptions. You know what I mean? So that's why. So when you hear that, like, it is what it is, I feel like we need to start rejecting that type of mindset, because that it is what it is means we're just in a box. This is the way that's going to be. This how it's always going to be. The adversity for being Black will always be persistent. We're not even giving ourselves an opportunity to say that it won't be that way on each interaction.
Yeah. So when you think about the question as far as how it impacts your life views, how do you then apply that, rejecting the "it is what it is" notion into your life views when some people out there are still facing adversity because they're Black? Like, if you're Black in the South, which you're a Black man in the South,
Yeah.
depending on how deep South you go or how red South you go, you're probably faced with a lot of hurdles where you can't find gainful employment. You get discriminated against, you get targeted, you pull into the wrong driveway, you might get shot. So, how do you apply that personally in your life, understanding that if you believe that there are caveats to being Black, and that, for instance, Francis's example, he enacts certain behaviors to avoid being targeted or victimized because he's aware he is Black. How does that directly impact your life view? Or can you share an example of like you rejecting the "it is what it is" notion and, not carrying the fear of being Black or, the perception of being Black?
Yeah, so I can speak from a personal perception because I definitely used to, like, I mean, I drive with the windows down. It don't matter what I'm listening to. Sometimes I'll be listening to some dance music, some Boston club music, and other times I'll be just listening to some classical. Other times I'll be listening to rap. But if I'm like driving through an area or if there's a cop gonna be around me, I used to wind up my window, turn my music down, don't draw attention to myself. I stopped doing that. I'm like, what am I doing? Literally, if I look at my situation, what am I doing wrong? I'm not doing anything wrong. So there's no reason for me to be intimidated by this police officer when I'm not doing anything wrong. And there's no reason for me to, I'm not disturbing the peace. I'm not playing it so loud or whatever. So I'm not disturbing anyone. So there's no reason for me to now put on this perception or put it all back in this box. You know what I mean? But one thing I will say that, and just to be honest, I know we're on this podcast and I know we're talking about this topic that's so complicated for each individual. I must say, for that example that you're talking about, where someone is like truly dealing with that type of racism and discrimination on a regular basis, I must be honest and say I don't know. I wouldn't know how to advise that person because I'm not in their situation. And like I said, it is about personal risk, and we have to be willing to take a little bit of personal risk if we want to get the respect that we feel that we deserve. But if you take it in the wrong place, there is potentially a consequence to it. I understand that, So it's up to the individual to assess the right amount of risk they're willing to take on and how comfortable they're willing to be with the parts that make them in society.
I just want to make a couple points. That "it is what it is" mentality doesn't mean you are accepting the status quo and living with it fully. It's just a coping mechanism while you find resolution. So like, it's really because at the end of the day we are battling physically mental wars, right? It's like it's deeper. It's not just like, we have to find ways to cope with the reality that we live in, and everyone has their own different way of dealing with issues. someone can have do hourly outburst if they are feeling some type of way. Some people are more quiet and reserved.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever way you deal with issue, like for me, the way I deal with it is what it is. But at the same token, though, I'm not saying it's okay, right? So the good thing is there we have people out there in our community who are fighting on our behalf every day. I'm not in the front line fighting, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm in full support in whatever capacity that I can provide. It could be resources, it could be funding, it could be signing documents. I get emails all the time like sign this petition or whatever, like that is in support of something else that we are fighting against in our community. So for me, yes, it is what it is for now, but it's not, it doesn't mean it's okay, right? And we all can process that differently. For the question that you asked, Glenn, I thought it was a great question actually. I think if for anyone in that situation, they have to assess, hopefully they can find other places that will accept them for who they are, because there are places out there, right? So for your own safety and your well-being and your family safety, if you need to move and relocate and find another location that will like fully intake you and accept you for who you are and wouldn't judge you for your race or your skin or your color, I think you have to like, really explore those options, right?
Mm.
And it's not easy, everyone's financial or lifestyle or even their current state is so different. It's impacted by different things.
Especially
But
now.
if what?
Especially now where everything's so damn
Yeah, like
expensive.
if
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like I would just say like I know that's not an easy answer to that, but like one thing I would do is I would explore moving, relocating to another place if that is an option that it can explore.
Yeah, I know like that kind of brought up the expat conversation as well. As far as where you have Black Americans going back to Africa,
Yeah.
essentially to find themselves. And the very great conversation I had with Tim Swain on that, also being a successful expat, him being active in the movements here as well in America. But yeah, I believe it's a thing as well. Like you said, you mentioned the challenges of kind of doing that also. But isn't there like an element of it as well where we're constantly running away from the problem also, where basically it's just like understanding that we're this particular percentage of people. It seems as if our strength, when it comes to consumership, is there. You know what I mean? Our strength when it comes to sports is there. Our strength when it comes to entertainment is there. However, it's like all other aspects of reality of the world were just essentially neglected or looked down upon. But I would say, for me, it does impact my life views. And I kind of want to ask you guys, the reason why I wanted to ask this question as well is because some of us have kids on the pod, and we're aware that we're bringing in Black appearing or Black people into this world as well. So, or if you're expecting a child, or where you think about it hypothetically, if you're going to have a kid, like how does that impact what you instill in them? Are there certain things you're going to tell them to expect in reality? Or is it just going to be, you know what, you are who you are, your Blackness isn't a thing? You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're having a young man, how does that impact his point of view? And as we've seen, particularly men of darker shades of complexion tend to be the most victimized.
Mm.
And there appears to be this correlation with the darker you are, particularly with law enforcement, the more of a threat you are.
Didn't that kid
So
just get shot because the old man said he literally was like a big black kid opened the door?
he's like, what, 13, 16 years old?
Yeah, it's like
Like,
16-year-old.
seriously?
You got shot in the head
Um,
after that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
great point, Glenn. Yeah, I mean, that's the scariest part, right? You
Mm,
know, we because we don't want our kids to like live through the same challenges we have. Our parents also have that same. They make life easier for us. So
Yeah.
now we have to think of how can I make life easier for my kids, and obviously it goes down in generations like that. So I mean, it's a great kind of topic. I think we are as a community. I think we are making we're striving towards the better future, it's not going as fast as we wish or want it to go, but I do think there are some progress being made. And you hope within the next couple generations things are a lot better than in the future than it is today. So but sometimes when you look left, look right, and you look backwards, it's hard to have those hope, because some of the things you still see now we have social media, we can see, we have full transparency to what happens around the world. You kind of just talk about that story as well, like we see what's going on every day to our people because of our race and the skin of our color. So it does is disheartening sometimes, and it does kind of give you like, man, I thought this was getting better, but it doesn't look so good. But I think there are always going to be those unique or situation that make us question things. But from a larger scheme of things, when we look at it, I think things are getting a little bit better, which I guess in a way I'm holding on to dear life with that, for that hope.
I think that's well, yes. I think I'll agree with you on the trajectory per se. That yes is progressing. Um just from referencing, obviously slavery is still not a thing, right? Now there's mental slavery, you know, ceilings being created, other
Financial slavery.
financial slavery. There's a lot of other things going on. So let's not,
Mhm.
so I'm not trying to act like the problem, there isn't still a problem, or isn't still room for improvement to be made. But yes, it is progress being made. Um, when you have kids, you kind of want, I mean, you want them to be whatever they want. Well, let me say for me, I'll talk for myself. I want my kid to be whatever he wants or she wants, like not feel as if they can be limited by society, but you can't let them walk around not knowing the dangers that basically wait around corners for them, right? So it is a fine line between kind of trying to encourage them to push boundaries to figure out who they want to be, and telling them like, hey, you look this kind of way, so there's people that will think of you in this way because you kind of look like this, right? So it is a little bit of juggling of that. But I mean, I'm hoping that as we get older, we have less of those conversations. There's less expectation to say, hey, when you see a police officer, you do this, and you got to make sure you do this, and you look them dead in the eye, and you say, sir, and you do like, we don't, I'm hoping that I don't have to have that conversation, but I am mentally prepared that if the climate doesn't change by the time, my kids want to start driving and stuff, I need to have that conversation.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I just saw something on Facebook. Sorry, I just want to make one more comment. It's a friend of mine from college. She posted her daughter, I mean her son, sorry, was confronted during recess by kids talking about his dark skin, like, and she shared the email that she received, like they were teasing him about his skin color, and the teacher emailed the mom, and she took a screenshot of it and put it on social media, like this is what my kids is dealing with in school. And they sent the email because she was asking the mom to let her to share if the son can recall like the name of the kids who were teasing him. you know
Mhm.
it's just, that is another like thing, as as parents, that's another like struggle and things that we have to like potentially worry about. you know and this kid is mixed. It's a little bit fair skin because the mom is she's mixed and the dad is black, so it's not isn't as dark as I am. And so like so it's not even like the darkest kid like it's even like the fairly light skinned kid, potentially even been faced with this challenge.
Mhm.
So it's like when I saw it, I was like, that is so disheartening. Like it's like we have to, as parents, we have to be so ready to have tough conversation with our kids at a young age because of, I'm sure the mom didn't plan for that. Like now she has to
Mhm.
sit with her son and talk about it. And it's just one of those unfortunate reality that, we don't want to shoulder or own it and carry it on as, this is with a badge of honor or anything like that. But it's just one of those things that, like you said, you have to be kind of prepare yourself to have some of those tough conversations with our kids because we don't know
Mhm.
what may or may not happen to that we may have to have those tough conversations they may encounter in school or at the store or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. And I feel like kids are the biggest revealers of, particularly the home setting,
yep.
Mhm.
because they're naturally inquisitive, to a fault. And a lot of them have no like inhibitions. So
No
wherever they
filter
see,
whatsoever.
they speak on. Can't say that kid is necessarily racist or in a racist family, but they are picking up that there are other people that don't look like them, and they may live in communities where they don't see Black people that often. Maybe the
Mhm.
only Black person they see is the mail person or a porter or a cleaner or the garbage man, and they don't really have that many interactions. So um I guess one thing I wanted to ask before we jump on the next question was, in your opinion, who created Black culture? Kind of get like a consensus, like how many of you are like the only Black people, or some of the only Black people, or reflect a very small number of the people of color in your workplace? And do you ever feel like you represent the next Black person coming in? Granted, if you were to step down or leave, or you're looking at hiring practices, because somebody could argue that today it is more inclusive, right? Like there are about what 23% female CEOs out there on some of these
Yeah.
top Fortune companies.
Mhm.
Some of them are Black women. So the idea that you know opportunity is not there. I mean, some people would even argue you had a Black president. Um, some people would argue, I really don't want to talk about sports or entertainment, but it was just like, to me, that's another form of low key like slavery as well when we talk about Black culture and pop references and all that. But somebody could argue that it is relatively progressive nowadays. Like there's really no excuse. You aren't in chains anymore. Slavery doesn't exist. Um, so I mean, how many of you feel like you carry the representation of all Black people? And then how many of you perceive that way? Because I can speak about instances in my workplace where, or workplaces I've worked, where essentially anything happened to a Black person in the news and media, me being the only one in the room, I had to answer for all those situations. It
So
was
what you know
just
about
like,
this topic?
it was like, hey, why are Black people in New York going so crazy? You know what I mean? They look
Like
at
you know
you
all of
like, you know what I
them.
mean?
I'm
And
like, why aren't more of them more like you or something like what?
exactly, you're the exceptional, you're the articulate one. Why? And then some people's only exposure to Black people is at the drive-through.
Mm.
So it's just like, do you ever get that sometimes? So I feel like we're in this kind of unique situation. Like you look at other races, you look at Asians, you look at Mexicans. Um, we're in the situation where it's kind of like, okay, if you got ahead, somebody gave you a pass, not because you worked hard. It's because some legislation was put in place to give you a pass. They're looking for affirmative action or some type of equity, even though affirmative action really applies to everyone, regardless of color, even gender. um aren't we in this kind of peculiar situation? Would you agree that we're in this peculiar situation where it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't, and regardless of how well equipped you are, you're essentially speaking for all Black people in this country?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could go first. I'm not saying that I don't have a sense of that type of pressure. Um, but I don't know, I just don't resonate with it. I don't really let it be the defining piece of kind of what I do and how I move. I don't know, for me, I always just kind of think of my immediate family, my friends, like those are the people that I'm trying to do my best for and who I ultimately need to kind of show and represent. Like these are my people, these are my community, this is the people that I associate with. I- I'm a reflection of them. But to try to take on a whole ethnic group, that's crazy. I just would not be able to do that. And I mean, mind you, I've been in those situations in work where like I've had people have reported to me, they're also Black, and then they're maybe more traditionally Black American. And I can feel that sense of like, you're my Black boss and you kind of made it, and like feel that kind of connection. But at the end of the day, I don't carry that. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm the appropriate person to carry that banner, to carry that mantle.
I
Man,
hear you.
that's so funny. I don't know, man. There's a sense of joy that I see. Like when I mean, I don't go to the office much, but when I used to, it's like when you're walking down the hallway and you see another Black person, it's like that unsubtle, like just nod that you give each
Yeah, like
other.
it
Like it's like
was
that love, like, yo, I see you, right?
Mhm.
So for me, yeah, I do carry that, to be honest, like, because I know, like, if I don't do well on my job, I might potentially like hindering somebody else in the future. And
that's
the
true.
funniest thing is, and this is one of the joy that I can say, when I before, so I'm in IT now, but before I joined IT, I was working in the business side, and I was in PMO working, and I left. The person that they hired was another Black man who is African, also reminded me of who I was, very like, and me and him actually became really tight because he used to like really reach out to me for kind of guidance and stuff like that because I used to be in the role that he took over. So yeah, that really put it in perspective for me because if I have done a bad job in my role,
Mhm.
maybe the job he got, maybe they wouldn't have hired him, right?
Mhm.
So, and it's always cool because we like when you have and I had a mentor, also a mentee when I was in the position who also got hired, and now she's doing well. So it's good to set those good examples because you know when, because that's when your references and some of that stuff holds weight because when people know the kind of worker you are, the kind of employee you are, what kind of quality of work you deliver at your job, it gives credit and credibility to who are like, oh, you know what, this person I know, or this person has the same background as this guy, and we had positive experience with him. So yeah, so for me, yeah, I do take that on, and yes, and even during COVID, and there was a lot of stuff going on in the news. My director asked me to speak in his team meeting, just to kind of share my experience working within his team. For me, it was a joy. I know some people find that to be offensive, like why am I asked to like represent the Black, blah 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 blah. For me, like I always find it when people truly are interested and want to learn or just curious to find something out. I'm the kind of person that would try to share as much as I know. I don't look at it from a judgmental view perspective where I know some of us can sometimes. So yeah, I mean, just kind of wrap that up. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. And I think that's even more reason. Like, I feel like personally, it helps to have the right people in those positions in the right place because once more, Blackness is not something we created, we inherited it. And regardless of whether or not you feel it's a part of who you are or whether or not you practice it, the reality is, especially if you're the only one in the room, there's a good chance you're being perceived based on that, or you're setting that example for what another Black worker could potentially be. So to me, it's kind of hard to wish for progression or hope for it if you don't aid in the fight. You're kind of just hoping that somebody else takes that burden and makes it easier for you. But considering that we're all part of this kind of consolidated, grouped up gamut, you know, basically, I don't feel like everyone is going to be on the front line. However, there's different front lines, right?
Mhm.
There's ones in the corporate workplace. There's ones in our community. There's other ways you can play a part. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to fly to another state and take part in a protest.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just like whether you accept it or not, I feel like the only way to progress is to recognize it. Doesn't mean you accept it, but you recognize that it is a reality, that some people may perceive you this way. And then when you're hit with those questions, when you have those dinners with those execs, and when you're, outside of the office, or maybe you're meeting with a client and you're at the dinner table, that's when those questions really come up. And, you know, a lot of times those are the things that are on people's minds. So to me, I don't think I am just my Blackness, but I'm aware of it. And because of that, whenever I am the only one in the room, regardless of where I'm at, I always want to be that example of, you know, progression, excellence, to hopefully set the path for someone else as well, so they get an opportunity. Because let's be real, it's a power dynamic, you know what I mean? And we're only a small percentage of the people in these places. So I think being aware and cognizant of that would be your way of doing a service to the progression, rather than hoping that somebody else takes that burden. Because in a way, I think if unless we accept it, there's no way to really progress. It's just going to be, oh, I hope somebody else does something. I hope the next, you know, Lewis comes up. I hope the next Farrakhan comes up. I hope the next King comes up. I hope the next X comes up. But at the same time, you're dealing with these issues too. Yeah. And like we're waiting until it happens to us directly, I feel a lot of the times, until we do something about it. And at that point, it's too late, because how many people of your, you know, complexion or within your community do you have to see get victimized before you take a stand? So like I said, not everybody has to be in the marches, but, you know, whatever you do to exude excellence or whatever you do, just be a good person. You know what I mean? And I think that will aid. Obviously, you're not going to change everybody's mind, but I think those are some of the steps that we can take. So I agree completely. Like, and even having that pride and that joy in it, knowing that you're doing your thing. So when you see somebody else like you, you're kind of just like, yo, we're in this together. And that's why we call each other bro and sis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
it's just a level of like joy that you get when you interact with someone of your kind. And that's why like we always like with this a key thing about mentoring at the level, at you know, having mentors who look like you at the, you know, maybe at the position or at the upper level management, because it kind of reinforces like, you know what, if he could do it, I could do it too. You know, I know it's not required. You don't need to see a Black person that be a VP or whatever before you think you can become a VP. You know, some people don't need that validation, but it definitely helps, because it shows you like, you know, it's a level of motivation. And just, you know, like we talk about the Black president thing. Yes, Obama's mixed, whatever, but we can say like we've accomplished. We have a real life example of a Black man being the president, and that is really what any kid sometimes that allows them to dream. You know, that's all you need sometimes, and then you can dream as big as you want. So for me, like, yeah, like I agree with you, Glenn. I think we have to own it, carry it, and really care for it, because we are influencing and impacting generation before after us, and just are clearing the path, just like the people before us did, for us to be in the position we are in. So
yeah, I think one thing that I'll just have to say is that, yeah, this conversation is actually, I mean, that's the whole point of why we have these conversations, because it's very eye-opening. And for me, it's been very eye-opening, because it's not that I wasn't aware of the social perception being put upon me, but it's almost like I was kind of shrugging it off and saying, well, they could look at me that way, but that's not who I am. You know what I mean? But by doing that, I'm also not helping or keeping in mind that there are people that really do have that issue, that really do have that plight, and that they can't move forward because of the fact that they're Black. And again, being perceived as just solely this Black person, I am also a part of that struggle, whether I want to associate with it or not. It's not a choice anymore. You know what I mean? So it's either you're helping to fight the fight in some form of fashion by just being aware of it, and exuding that positive attitude, exuding like good characteristics, skills, etc., or you just don't, and it pushes back that entire group. That's it. So it's either you push it forward or you don't. There's no in between. And then also one thing that you said, Fran, when it comes to the kids, it's, oh damn it, I lost it. But the perception that we show, because I think it's important to say, we always say like, oh, it's possible, it's possible, it's possible. But it's one thing to say something is possible from a point of optimism, right? When you're optimistic about something happening, you know, everyone can kind of encourage each other to be optimistic. But when you have a point in history that you can actually reference to say there was a Black president, that is different. That hit different, right? Little kids that are inspiring to find their greatness, when they have a point in history to say that it legitimately happened, they know that it's realistic for them, right? There's no kids going to say, well, I can't be president because there's never been a Black president. They know they can be president. So, and typically what we do is go beyond that. So I think having those reference points in history, seeing it happen is really also very positive and very powerful for the next generation.
Now, I know I was going to ask this question first, but I kind of want to touch on this one, considering that it's not often that you have people of different ethnicities to talk on the subject. I know I kind of chimed on this before, but I guess growing up in America as Africans, like real Africans, were there any like points of view, or were there any preconceived notions you were fed to believe about Black Americans in particular, Blacks born in America as Africans? Or because I know you'll hear a lot about, and I think it was like present in even in media, like the first Black Panther, when you had Killmonger returning to find his origin, his roots, and feeling like he wasn't accepted, and that kind of, this is used as an example, but that kind of detailed some of the struggle that Black in America have when it comes to, you know, Africans, and retracing their history to get this idea that they're not going to be accepted by Africans, or the Africans just don't want them. You know what I mean? So can you guys speak to any points of view or any preconceived notions that have maybe changed over time, or maybe things that you heard, murmurs, or thoughts that were passed around about Blacks in America in general?
Yeah, I think I'll just start off on this one. I think coming to America. Oh boy, I actually said that.
A lot of movie and film references.
A lot of movie reference, man. But I think coming to America, when you first come to America, there is I won't necessarily go into each individual thing because I'm not going to disrespect them like that, but there is a negative social connotation with being associated with Black Americans. And your parents fight it. Your parents are aware of it. They're trying to fight it. They're like, don't dress like that. Don't hang with these kids. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like, just trying so hard to keep you away from being associated with this group. And I mean, again, it speaks a lot when, I mean, I think even other cultures, I don't even understand, like in general, like globally, when it comes to the perception of dark skin. There's other cultures where they're literally trying to lighten their skin. Like, we all want to look so like white. I don't understand.
Yeah, bleaching, yeah. Like
the bleaching, and it's not just a Black American thing. It's like we're all trying to just get away from the darkness of our skin. I have no idea why, but yeah, but when we first come to America, our parents do that. They're like, no, stay away from these kids. Don't hang with these kids. Don't wear that. Don't do that, because they're trying to push us away from being included in that group. Unbeknownst to them that they can do all they want, we will get included in that group regardless. You know, they're not realizing it's solely because of the skin. They're thinking that it's all these negative characteristics that's really what it's about. You know, when we immigrate here, it's like, oh no, it must be true. It must be, if my kid doesn't do that, they won't, these Westerners, these white people won't look at my kid in that same light, when it's really just about the skin. It's just about the skin. There's nothing you can do to not get associated with that group. And it's not, and it's terrible that group gets that rap, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, my cousin hit it right in the head, bro. Hit the nail right on the head. You know, I think, yeah, because my parents, we are cousins, so, and I don't know. I think yeah, I think a lot of it is because they also don't really understand the history of this country when they came in here, came to this country. They also I don't think they fully understood the history of the black and the struggles of our brothers, right? So in a way they always and they have this negative perspective of them, and so they try to kind of shield us from that, and learning some behaviors that they think is wrong or is something we can learn from them. And for me, like, and that's something I've always kind of struggled with, um and that's why I always try not to I try it's my hardest not to like create a divide between the two, and I think that's one of the issues that we have in the black community,
Mm.
because at the end of the day we always try and divide each other from we are black, all of us.
Team light skin, team dark skin.
It doesn't matter,
Mm,
like, why are we trying to divide each other? Like, at the end of the day we are one. And
Mm.
that's why it's always like I just wish that we all have that mindset, and always be like, oh, this group, that group, like we are one group,
Mm.
and we should like face the struggles and the challenges that we have as a race together, instead of trying to be like, oh, that's the black African American struggle, so it doesn't pertain to my African ass, so I'm African. Excuse me, I'm African, I'm Jamaican, this does not include me. But at least this is how I think, right? I know, like,
mm,
like I said, it really depends what group. I feel like sometimes what we do is we also choose and pick how we want to, like, oh, I'm Nigerian American, I'm this and that. But in reality, there's still we are all rooted back to the motherland, right? So for me, I've always never, like, yeah, if somebody asks me like, where are you? Where were you born? I'm like, I was born in Nigeria, but I'm black. I'm African American. Like,
Mm.
so for me, so I just always try not to create that divide. And the struggle that I had growing up with my brothers is we are also the source of pain for our fellow African brothers.
mm,
We are also the, like, I'm talking about African Americans, black Americans who are born here, right?
Mm.
mm,
They are also the one causing a lot of issues for our African brothers when they come to this country.
Mm.
mm,
Like, I remember growing up, man, like I used to get teased because I was darker than by my brothers,
Oh, I
right?
see what you mean.
Right. So we
Mhm.
we cause the pain for each other. Like, we always trying to, like, oh, he's not one of us. Oh, you African booty scratcher, all this stuff. Like,
mm,
you got
Mhm.
lions living with you, or all this
Mhm.
comment. But like, the thing is, we don't realize the mental challenge that actually cause, even at a young age. Like, kids go home and just hate themselves because, like, you know what? Why am I so different? Why
Yeah.
do I have this accent? Why don't I sound like them? Why don't I look like them? Why do I have to be so dark? Like, because we are so young, we don't understand how to even handle that, right?
mm,
And kids' parents sometimes think it's funny, like, but it's not. Some
You
kids
can't
can't
even fit
handle
in the
that.
group that you're being pushed into.
Yeah, like, some people can't handle that even as adult. Like, they can't handle being teased because they don't know, like, they always think all, like, all this jokes is coming from a bad place, where some people just think it's jokes, so they think it's funny, so you're just making funny jokes to be cause entertainment for like their peers, but in reality, we are causing pain for each other at both sides.
mm,
And that is the this part about just our culture and our race that I hate the most.
mm,
And that is part of the stuff I do not align with, So, like, this is just divide that happens between us. And in reality, for me, I just want us to just be one, tackle the issue we face as a race, so we can move forward and just and help each other. We have our continent is could do so much better, bro. Like, we have so many great people across the world, right? And everyone has their own different goals and whatever. But like, if we can actually start in one place and have the same tone, have the same goal, and kind of get back to our value as a race, I think there will be a trickle down impact all the way down back to Africa that's impacting our people today,
Hmm.
naturally, I think. So,
Mm.
and that is really some of my like like just soapbox. Like it's just something
No,
that I just wish is not a thing, but is what we deal with today.
no, that's what we're here for, to keep it 100 and speak to experiences, because I mean, you can even see it where I believe like it was like America and Canada were trying to push LGBTQ, policies to African countries, and they were just
Mhm.
like openly rejecting it. So not even so much being a Black American, but also just being an American period and how that's perceived in other countries. And a great point you touched on, Francis, as far as how Africans or non-Black, well, Blacks not born in America or foreign Blacks are perceived to Black Americans in here, because I was Jamaican. Everybody would call me Haitian in high school, and it was a negative thing to be considered Haitian in my community. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Because Haitians were looked down upon, even though they made up a very big majority of the Black people here in my community in Irvington. It was just like, to be called a Haitian was like similar to being called the N-word by a white person,
Mm.
by another
I didn't
Black
know that.
person. And I love my Haitian people. You know what I mean? So it was just like, yeah, I wanted people to recognize my identity, with understanding, like, the things like African booty scratcher, all that. It shows that there is a divide even amongst ourselves.
Right.
So if we're not able to show ourselves that love, then how do we expect to progress? We don't identify that, we're all part of the same struggle at the end of the day. We're perpetuating hate towards one another. And I can speak to a personal experience as well, real quick, before we get to our last question. And I used to work at this event space, and I could honestly say, I'm gonna keep it 100, since Fran opened up the 100 box. um, this was a Black-owned business, and I could personally say I did recognize a difference in the culture of people, or where the ethnicity of people, to how they treated the space. And them also knowing that they were attending a Black-owned space, I did notice a difference to how clean the space was kept when Asians attended the space,
Hmm.
when Hispanics or Latin Americans attended the space, when Africans, Jamaicans attended the space. However, when Black Americans attended the space, there would be garbage everywhere. There would be damage to the property. I would have to tell people, don't run around in the parking lot. Like, this is a parking lot. Like, why are you running around in the parking lot? Why are you drinking in the parking lot? Like, you booked an entire event space, but yet you want to drink outside in the parking lot. In a community where this is probably one of the only few Black businesses, and we're trying to really drive in our people and represent for our people, to show that we can, make sustaining good businesses. And yet again, the biggest struggle I have, our experience with Black Americans, like, legit, never had that problem with any of the Jamaicans, Africans, Haitians, none of them, Asians, Latin Americans. But it's just, for some reason, like, it was, being like a part of that business opened up another layer to me, where it was just like, okay, if we're doing or committing certain acts, then how do we expect the narrative to change? You know what I mean? Like, how do you expect people to look at you differently? And, a lot of times that's why you see, when people get ahead, they tend to move out of their own communities. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And you have that issue where people don't want to contribute or give back, because it's just that mentality is not there to warrant any type of progress. So I feel like a part of the accountability falls within us as well, to kind of get out of these self-defeating and damaging mind frames, especially when it comes to our own people. So until we're able to accept and love one another, how do you expect someone else from outside to do the same? You know what I mean? And honestly, it could just be a result of segregation, hate, violence that we expect or experience day to day. Policies put in place to keep us at a certain level, that make it difficult for people to really, incorporate that mind of view when they're just trying to survive, or they're just looking for the next meal, or they're just essentially taught to hate the next man because they have something that you don't. So a lot to unpack there, honestly. But me personally, I feel like the reason why I wanted to ask that, because I feel like the fight initially starts with us before anyone else.
Yeah. And you killed that. Yeah, I think that is really it, man. I think we have to just find love and joy, compassion, togetherness, within our own community. And I think that would trickle to other places that we wanted to. I think at least when we have one voice with the same goal, it's easier to combat issues that we are facing outside. Right.
Mm,
So, and I think that's really where the focus, I know like people always trying to like, when we talking about, police brutality, so I know some people hate when people bring up black on black crime, which, I don't want us to, because that doesn't negate the struggle that we have with the cops. But it is also a reality that we also need to face, that we do have a problem in that space as well, and we need to find ways to resolve it. We need to find a resolution. So yeah, we have a lot to do, man. But that's the just imagine us figuring it out as a race. We are doing so much. That's what like shows our resiliency, right? That's why like resilient is such a attribute that's associated with being black, because there's a reason for that, because we are
Mm.
resilient. We've been through a lot, and we always find a way to find our way out of it and still to succeed in whatever situation we are placed into. So yeah, I'll let you ask your last question, Glenn.
all
So
right, bet. So I did have one more question, but I'm not gonna gear it towards us. I think we touched on quite a bit. I can see some of the hungry faces here, so I'm actually gonna direct this one towards the public. Now that you heard this discussion and you may have some points of view of your own that you want to share, as always, check us out at Jerk Jollof Collar Pod on Instagram. But I want to ask the public this question: is Black culture oppression culture? Essentially, are we teaching one another, labeling as Black culture, are we teaching one another to separate from the other? Do you perceive that the only way to progress is through unification, or to continue to separate one another from other groups of races of people? What's your take on that? So in other words, is Black culture oppression culture? With that said, I think we're going back to our weekly drops. Will be one episode per week. But don't hold me to that. We still got some kinks to figure out. So the best thing for you to do would be to subscribe so you can get notified when the next episode drops. Also follow us on Instagram and YouTube so you can stay in the know, hit that notification bell so you can be aware of when the next episode drops. We'll be putting out some clips of this episode as well. Feel free to check us out on Libsyn, Apple, Spotify, anywhere you stream your podcast, you can find us. Just search Jerk Jollof Collared Pod, and be sure to give us a follow, like, comment, and review. But that said, any last words for the people, folks?
welcome to be. It's good to be back.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And that's a powerful question. If you guys really sit down and think about that you'll learn a lot about yourself, and then you probably learn a lot about your neighbor. So it's actually a really good question to consider.
Absolutely. Well, this is Jerk Jollof Collar Pod, your number one place for the brothers that you wish you had, but direly need. With that said, stay blessed, one love, peace.
Peace.